I wanted to ask you another issue. This is more a current events issue, and again, this is more with your Rabbi Jewish hat on modern culture, where things are going. A big topic going on in Western civilization today. It's touched upon in Israel, but it's more so very much in America. Transgenderism. And especially the fact that now, there's just a case of a 7-year-old boy whose mother is, in a sense, forcing him to transgender to be a girl. What does the world of Judaism, of Torah, of our value system have to say about this whole existence of transgenderism, and then going down to specifically to this child, a 7-year-old child? Does that really make sense? Even if this exists and someone wants to transgender themselves, for a 7-year-old child, does it make sense that a 7-year-old understands and wants to change their gender? Love to hear your insight on this.
Look, I'm not an expert in gender theory or in I'm not a psychologist either. So I want to I can speak to rough brush strokes. There are a number of different issues here. One is the question of transgender, of one's changing one's gender from male to female to male. There is the question of whether a gender exists at all. That's there's a
separate from sex.
There's a separate from sex. Separate from sex. Biology indeed is not relevant or is minimally relevant. There is, in particular, a professor at Berkeley whose name is Judith Butler, who is a Jewish woman, self-identified Jewish woman. She is an enthusiastic supporter of Hamas, by the way, also.
Oh, boy.
She is virulently anti-Zionist. Now, I don't know if this has one thing has to do with the other, although there are certain Marxist tendencies to both. She argues that everything that we associate with what makes a man a male, or a female, is not inherent. It is socially constructed. In other words, somebody set up a system that decided that men are like this and women are like that, and that there's really that this is all. I don't know if it's all a conspiracy, but it's certainly all socially structured. So we could restructure society, and everybody can be the same, or we could be this, or we can be that. When you take that to its final conclusion, and in fact, that's what happens. You end up going to the.
It's going there.
According to at the present time, in many places, if you apply for a job or you apply for a university, you have at least 15 options under gender. It used to be male, female. Now there are 15 different options as to what you are. In theory, a friend of mine who was a psychologist told me he told me yesterday that they now talk about 100 different genders, which is really pretty. I mean, that's more than Baskin Robbins makes ice cream. So that's pretty, which basically means that there really is no gender. I mean, it's all just it's pretty much anarchic. The question, so number one, it's very clear that this is a case that on one level, taking this to its nth degree, and there is a connection with Hamas in this regard. Marxists assumed, and neo-Marxists assumed that everything is power and everything is structure, and that the powers that be create the structures which we are then forced into. If we can take apart the structure, then we can really be free, which is kind of interesting considering the fact that Marxists are generally totalitarians.
Right.
They want to make it like you, but
right,
fine. So that's there's definitely ideology here. It is, it's true. I mean, that's not whatever. That certain things that we do are certainly that we associate with men or women are because for millennia that's what men did X and women did Y, and sometimes there was a certain amount of flow, and sometimes it was this, and sometimes it was that. But in general, the guy was the provider, the guy was the hunter, the guy was the soldier, the guy was stronger, and the woman was more nurturing, and the mother, and so on and so forth. His experience has shown that when it comes to tasks that there were many tasks that men can do and that women can do, and it's equally and they're equally accessible. So from that point of view, there is social construction. Some of it's even silly. I did not know this, but my daughter actually pointed out to me that this whole question of pink and blue. Somebody, I don't remember who it was now, but some advertising guy at some stage decided women are pink and guys are blue, and that's stuck. And there's even something called the pink tax,
right?
Which what are you talking about? Guys are also one thing. Guys actually are is clueless. So
that definitely separates men from women.
There's a big. I didn't realize. I went. According to halakha, according to Jewish law, a guy is not allowed to shave this part of their head and not shave the beard with a straight edge razor. You can use electric razor, you can use a depilatory, whatever the case may be, but you can't use a straight edge razor. That doesn't apply to this part underneath the neck and to the cheeks. So I have a beard. So I for many years I had an electric razor and I used it just to trim. Until a friend of mine pointed out to me, they said, no, you can actually, for a lot less money than an electric razor, use your regular straight edge as long as you just, go down here and up here, because that's not included in the prohibition. So why am I telling you all of this? So my daughter said, not that I didn't believe her, but it was sort of stunning. My daughter says, if you go into the drugstore and you get it, and you look at the packages of Lady Gillette, I'm using Gillette, but it's all these different types. Lady Gillette and Men's Gillette. The Lady Gillette is pink, and the Men's Gillette is blue. And if you take a look, they're almost exactly the same thing. But the pink one will be more expensive. And in fact, I needed to get some throwaway razors because I wanted to shave, and I went into the pharmacy here just the other day, and I was looking for. It was interesting. The razors were actually behind the counter, like something you shouldn't get because Orthodox Jews are not supposed to,
use
razors. So, anyways, I took a look, and actually there is a significant price difference between the women's shavers and the ones that are either neutral or for men. It was stunning, it was absolutely stunning. So, anyways, so that's sort of like a silly example of where, yes, the power structure does determine differences between men and women. However. Oh, and in addition, there is a serious psychological condition known as gender dysphoria, where people really feel that they are not sure of their gender, or they feel that they were born into their own body, and it was in fact treat people who suffer from that condition or have that condition that the first sex change clinic was created at Johns Hopkins University many years ago. The question is that a reality or is it psychological? Is a psychological condition, which is maybe treatable, maybe not treatable. The axiological, the dogmatic position today is it's not a condition. It just can be people really are born into their own bodies, and therefore you have to do transsexual surgery, and there's nothing to talk about. The founder of the clinic in Johns Hopkins, who closed it, was interviewed a number of years ago, in which he said that it's a condition, but he never found that transgender people are happy after the surgery. So that's why he says, obviously, the surgical intervention, he doesn't think is the... So there is this debate. It's not a solution. Right, it's not a solution. So there is this debate, which I'm not qualified to have an opinion on, but there is a debate. The problem is a lot of the debate gets shut down because of the ideological issues, which speak to, by the way, also the general tendency in contemporary society to deny absolute truth and to let everybody say, I am whatever I am. So therefore, this comes to the extreme position where if a person, officially, if a person says, wakes up in the morning and said, I am a gender other than that which I was biologically identified as, then then you have to, by law, this is true in the United States in a lot of places, then by law you have to accept that, and they can use the facility of the other gender and so on, which got me into a little bit of trouble at Bar Ilan, was it last year? But wherein there was a conference and they put up an all gender bathroom sign, and I sort of had a reaction. I didn't think that was appropriate, especially in a religious university, which brings us. And by the way, where there are a lot of very, very religious Muslims who
also
a religious Muslim woman is not going to be happy walking into a bathroom and finding a guy there. Just that simple. In any event, that's not for right now. The question is in terms of Judaism. Listen, we in this regard are somewhat reactive, because Jewish law reacts rather than doesn't a priori legislate, because we have the Constitution, the Torah there in advance. It's no question, there is no question, that fundamentally Judaism works with a gender binary, meaning that there are men and there are women. And men have their obligations, and women have their obligations. And men have their job, and women have their job. Now, that doesn't mean that men can't help at home, and that women shouldn't go to work. And it doesn't mean that everything's cut in stone. And the system itself, the Torah itself has a lot of room for movement. So, for example, the fact that there are so many learned women, which is one of the most amazingly wonderful developments of the past 30 years, 40 years. Mm-hmm. In the Orthodox world, yes, there was disinclination at one point for women to get the same education as men, but it's not like a hardcore, prohibition of that sort, and there's certainly a lot of justification. So, in other words, you're talking about going in where there was no precedent, but where it's not wrong. On the other hand, Judaism definitely does assume that the woman is more nurturing and the guy is more the guy's going to be a little bit more tough, whatever.
The provider, the defender,
right? We do have quality and Jewish tradition does recognize the fact that there are people of that there can be people of undetermined gender.
Undetermined gender or undetermined sex?
Undetermined sex, sorry. Undetermined sex. So, for example, there's a person who's androgynous. Androgynous means man-woman. Androgynous, has certain types of, but it's not considered to be a norm.
Right, it's
if you have a person who is of this sort, this is how you deal with it.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, androgynous means that it has the female and the male genitalia.
Correct.
So again, it's
talking about a rather unusual case,
right? And it's based on the genitalia.
And you have the tumtum, who's a person who's of undetermined gender, where there's really you don't know.
Right, you don't know the genitalia.
You don't know what's going on.
Right. But it's interesting that you bring that up because some Jews go to the Torah and say, see, the Torah has transgenderism.
That's not transgenderism.
Exactly.
Transgenderism. The question is, you have a situation of a person in a certain circumstance. Where is their place within the society? It's not the same as saying, okay, I was born this way, I'm going to go with something else. That Judaism does not recognize. There's no way for a man to become a woman or a woman to become a man. In fact, on the contrary, the Torah actually legislates against that kind of activity. So, for example, cross-dressing,
right?
Transvestitism. Transvestitism, what does that mean? Vestito, or vestitus in Latin means clothing. Trans means changing clothing. That's all it means, transvestite. So cross-dressing, which is literal translation, cross-dressing is forbidden. It's forbidden. A guy is not allowed to dress in female clothing, and a woman is not allowed to dress in male clothing.
Right.
Now, so then that becomes the whole debate about pants, which I don't want to get into.
We don't have to get into that now.
That's not really relevant. Because there's also unisex clothing and whatever. But
the bottom line is
that it's not only a matter of we only recognize two genders, or two sexes, but also two genders, and one's not allowed, and that you're built in not to be able to to in fact try to be something else. In addition, there's a prohibition against castration. So for a guy to go and have the sex assignation therapy and go through castration, have his genitalia, that's absolutely prohibited. Castration of any sort is prohibited. This is a matter of
Health.
life. A person, unfortunately, a person that tragically gets testicular cancer or something is nothing to talk about. But
someone from their own free will, just out of choice,
is prohibited. So that and again, once the person does it, it doesn't change their sex or their identity as far as Judaism is concerned. So what do you do about the people who really suffer from gender dysphoria? So people like that have to be embraced and have to be supported and have to be helped in any way possible. But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize, that we don't assume that there were actually two genders. Now that again, within a certain amount of things, there were some women. Their motive action, their motive of comportment is somewhat more masculine, or the other way. So there is, that happens in society. But the bottom line of this story is that this idea that gender is fluid, or the idea that that you can change your gender, your sex or your gender, I see no way that the Judaism can endorse that. You're I don't mean to be cruel, but you're dealt a certain hand, and you have to deal with whatever the hand is, and how that is would depend on the individual. And again, maximum sympathy, maximum support, maximum amount of openness and caring, and whatever you can do. But there are limits to that.
And following this, I just want to go back to this 7-year-old, which brings up the bigger issue of, on the one hand, you could be understanding, yes, there is gender dysphoria, and there is an anomaly of some people in the world that has some type of condition. But to make the jump, to start educating children about gender fluidity, that even when little children are then trying to think, what am I, a boy or a girl, and I'm confused, and today I want to be this, and tomorrow I want to be this, or my mother's convincing me to that seems like a huge cultural jump that is very dangerous.
That is a huge jump. And in fact, I've often wondered whether we're not creating another power structure, only in another direction. In other words, if society was training up until now that boys are boys and girls are girls, men are men, women are women, so now by educating towards gender fluidity, we're opening up possibilities and making suggestions to kids that maybe they wouldn't have thought of, or maybe people have different. Like I said, I'm not a psychologist. People have different urges. People have. It's not unusual when a kid reaches puberty that they're flooded with hormones. They think all kinds of things, and their identity doesn't settle down until later. So, that becomes an issue. That becomes an issue of human rights. What's absolutely striking to me is the fact that that those who fight against circumcision and scream that that's barbaric, an invasion and a violation of the body of the child, here, where the kid is 7 years old and they want to do sex assignation surgery on this kid, and it's for life. Why isn't that also considered to be a violation?
Oh, then it's celebrated. We have to allow the child
I don't
to change.
I don't understand the.
There's no consistency.
No, everybody has right to my opinion. I don't think I would. It's funny. It cuts both ways. That's why it's so nowadays life is so confusing.
When this will finish. Some friend of mine once, was encountered or somebody who said, "I don't want to raise my kids with any religion." Well, that becomes 18. Let him decide. That's always the answer. The truth of the matter is that that's sort of like a very superficial, it's even disingenuous answer. Because you can't make a decision about something you don't know. So it means you have to make a decision to educate. And education, by definition, of children is coercive. Education is coercive. Okay, tomorrow, today's Monday. Wednesday, students will come into my class,
and they have signed up for my class, but they will have to learn what I teach them. Now, they can accept it, reject it, whatever the case might be, but that's coercion.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to, in fact, take an exam that I'm going to write to see that I am satisfied that they sufficiently learned the material that I taught, that I'm going to teach
and
them.
they answered in the way that you believe is the correct way to answer those
and
questions.
I'm pretty easy to touch, but still, there's a limit.
Right.
In elementary education, we don't ask the kids, do you want to study math? Do you want to study English? Do you want to study biology? Do you want to study? No. We create a curriculum and we coerce these kids because we, from our wisdom, and there is cumulative wisdom, decide this is what a kid should know. Education by definition is coercive. So that's on the one hand. The other hand, you can at least later, and it happens if some people start, for example, in religious schools, they stop being religious later, but they have the education. They made you hope they made a reasoned decision. Here, you're basically taking a kid who doesn't have competence. He's a kid, and making a decision for them, which there's no way back. So that, and the truth of the matter is that we have no idea. I'm a historian who believes in what's called in the school that I sort of identify with. It's the Annales School in France. It's about 100 years old already. That you do history from the point of view of the long view, or the longue durée, as originally was called. And we have no idea what the long-term societal implications are. What we have no idea what the long-term medical implications are for people. We have no idea what the long-term psychological implications are for people. We have no idea what the long-term societal implications for. We do know that one thing that the gender fluidity is doing is accelerating the dissolution of the family, of the traditional family, as an option. I recently heard someone on TV saying that any combination of people is a family.
CBS is now having a series, meaning a mainstream television network series on polygamy units. That's
inevitable. That's inevitable.
In a sense, normalizing it now.
That is inevitable. Polygamy and polyandry are inevitable. Polyamory is now considered to be what's polyamory? Polyamory means that you sort of have a primary relationship, but everybody cheats with everybody else, but it's not cheating because it's part of the deal. There's no monogamy. There's no devotion to any one individual. Yesterday on the TV, there was a dermatologist who was on who said that actually they've discovered that there's a direct correlation between the dissolution of the traditional family unit and longevity. That people who live in structured traditional societies live longer, significantly longer than. We're talking. This dermatologist was saying between 4 and 6 years on average.
It correlates well with that research. It also says people who live in traditional family units are happier people, and generally,
right.
And they're so happier with longevity.
It also goes together,
right?
And so on. But so it's inevitable.
Right.
It's inevitable that the polyamory, and polygamy are going to make a big pushback, because once you, and it's really inevitable, because once you dissolve structures, then everything is okay. Everything is okay.
Right. Listen, I'm not an academic, and I don't profess to be an academic. I'm not as learned as you or others, but to me, it seems clear that with this new gender fluidity direction, it is a onset towards the downfall of Western civilization, and it will lead towards the more traditional, value-oriented societies surviving.
Listen, I'll tell you a story. I have a Palestinian friend. I have more than a Palestinian friend. But a Palestinian friend who I was talking to about this, and he said, "You think that we want to become, in this case, Israelis? He says, we don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
We're not interested.
Okay.
This is a guy, by the way, with only one wife. We're not interested. We don't want this. We
don't want this modern Western
culture. You have
culture.
to understand that one of the, I mean, there's a lot of downsides to it. I'm not endorsing this, but one of the issues in the resurgence of more devout Islam,
yes,
is the utter rejection of what they see as the decadence of the West.
Right.
And that's something to it's something to keep in mind. Again, I'm not talking about how they treat gays, and that's maybe related, maybe not related, but in general, part of the impulse is because they see a contra between them.
And putting them aside, you can also see that within a strengthening of the voices of the more conservative elements in the Jewish community, also as a contra to the growing coming apart of the traditional values within Western culture.
There was a recent very interesting article that was published by Ariel Schnabel, who's one of the editors of Makor Rishon, one of the Israeli papers, and he quoted a paper or an article that was published by Professor Tel Aviv. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was an op-ed in Haaretz newspaper.
Ariel wrote an op-ed.
He wrote in Makor Rishon about an op-ed.
Got it.
In Haaretz, which argued that having children is every child that's born is a sort of a nail in the coffin of the environment.
Oh, right.
And we shouldn't have children. So he says, now, the truth of the matter is that is also a movement in the United States and in the West. Mm-hmm. It's called not being childless; it's being child-free. However, what ends up happening is that that part of this, the way Schnabel argued, that what lies behind this editorial or op-ed was fear of the fact that there are two populations in Israel which have high birth rates. One of them is the Arabs, who, by the way, whose birth rate is actually going down, and the religious Charedim and also Sephardim, who tend to have something between 3 to 9 children per family, depending on Charedim to the lower end at Mizrahim and traditionalists. And they realize that that's true, but that it's going to be over. The numbers are going to be very telling. They're going to lose control. And my son is a very wise guy. He's a very wise person. Yeah. He said it beautifully. He said that the future belongs to the ones who show up.
Right.
So
that's right. And I'm going to segue to end on another positive note, which brings up the anomaly of the majority of the Jewish population here in Israel, much of which is secular, traditional, not necessarily religious lifestyle, and Western culture, and yet still large families for secular culture.
We are the only country in the European Economic, what it was called, OECD, Organization of Economic Community, something, whatever it is, which has positive birth rates.
Right.
We are at 3.1. There are countries in Europe that are 1.2, which is way beyond
sustainability.
Below sustainability.
Right, and it shows there's something to the lifestyle of a traditional unit, even with those who are not necessarily living that lifestyle on a daily basis, but they're part of our overall culture in our homeland.
Correct.
That they're influenced in this positive way.
Correct.
Rabbi Woolf, it is a pleasure again. Thank you very much, everyone. Have an amazing day. Make it an amazing day. I hope this was informative. If it was, please share it for others. And signing off and saying shalom from the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, land of Israel here in the Judean Hills. Thanks for watching, everyone. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click like and share so that as many people as possible can see this great information about Israel. If you're not yet following this page, please click follow. And finally, for more great videos about Israel, go to IsraelUnwired.com and sign up for the newsletter.